There have been a lot of questions about what's different for Mistweaver on PTR. Most people are concerned with Way of the Crane and the spin to win gameplay being dead. A lot of people saw the nerfs to it and freaked out. It's fine. Very little has changed actually. The only gameplay change regarding Way of the Crane is that we are now using Spinning Crane Kick for healing on 8 targets instead of 4. And in keys, you have 8 or more targets most of the time, depending on the dungeon. So far for PTR, Mistweaver does feel slightly different, mainly due to the health increase that we received again, just to try to make healing less spiky. This is most noticeable with the cleaves on Shaylin's gift. They hit for about 13k, and I have 800,000 health. Revival is also no longer a group-wide lay on hands and 5-mans. It still does a decent amount of healing, it just isn't going to full top everybody. In the case of Revival, this isn't new. This is something that we've seen basically every season since Dragonflight, is that early in the expansion, Revival is very good and very strong, and then it will get progressively weaker throughout the expansion as we get more gear. It just doesn't scale as well as something that would be health-based, because it is spell power. The Ancient Teachings buff feels great, especially with Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick, and Jade Fire Stomp through Emperor's Elixir. Overall healing varies dungeon to dungeon, and we currently only have one dungeon to test, which is Altar of Fangs, but Ancient Teachings was much closer to Way the Crane, though Way the Crane was still our top healing. I do think that this could be different in different dungeons like in King's Rest, Murder Row, or Voidscar Arena, as there seems to be less potential for mass pulling due to mob type or just smaller packs of mobs in general. In that case, I could see Ancient Teachings being our top heal overall. Something I would like to see is a buff to the Blackout Kick Cleaves. Over a whole dungeon, Blackout Kick only did 0.7% more than Touch of Death, and Touch of Death only had 7 uses. So I would like to see the Cleaves get a damage buff, and maybe some of the Ancient Teachings transfer could be reduced in exchange for a damage increase on this. Earlier I said we were using Spinning Crane Kick for healing on 8 instead of 4, but Spinning Crane Kick does still do more damage at 5 targets, so it would be nice to change up our rotation just a little bit more, because we aren't taking damage all the time, so we will still end up using Spinning Crane Kick most of the time, even if it isn't for healing. I did try out Vital Expenditure instead of Uplifted Spirits. I think it's okay. I don't think the Altar of Fangs is the best use case for this talent, since there's not a ton of heavy single target damage, so I do want to wait and see it in something like King's Rest or Temple of Sasterless before judging it too hard. I would also like to see Jade Serpent Statue added to the interactions, and then I think it would be a very good talent for situations where you're regularly healing 1 to 3 people with casted heals and fully utilizing Soothing Mist. As far as raid testing goes, Mistweaver feels exactly the same, especially considering our 4-piece is currently bugged and not working with Rushing Wind Kick, though that will get fixed. I tried playing around with Vital Expenditure instead of Dancing Mist for a few pulls, but renewing mist counts were just consistently so low, it doesn't seem like it's going to be competitive in raid as of right now. We should get a better idea about overall Mistweaver performance in raid in a few weeks when we have Mythic raid testing and 20-man groups, and hopefully some bug fixes. I will probably do a quick video on the raid side of things after Mythic testing and further tuning. For the new dungeon, it is called Altar of Fangs. It is a 3-boss, 30-minute key, and I think overall I would give it a B+. The first area has 6 totems that need to be clicked while out of combat in order to open the door to the first boss. This is very similar to the prisoners in Pit of Saron. The trash here has a Tank Buster, a group-wide heal absorb, some shoot damage, and some mobs that have a stacking and rage effect that increases their attack speed, which either needs to be CC'd, soothed, or kited out. There's some kicks that if they go off, they will reduce the haste for the whole group and deal sonic damage, I believe. This area is honestly really heavily influenced by your tank. The only thing to heal other than the random damage is the heal absorb, which doesn't even have any sense of urgency. If you remember back in Floodgate in the War Within, there were the Blood Warpers, or even more recently, the Curse and Pit of Saron. These were large heal absorbs that also did damage, so you needed to get them off quickly. But in this one, it's only a heal absorb, and the only time-sensitive thing here is getting the absorb off of the tank, and then everyone else can be covered through maintenance, which is a little weird. There's no significant damage happening during the absorb except for tank damage, so I could see this changing, but also putting one of these guys at each totem is a little crazy if they were all like Blood Warpers because there's 6 of them in a really short time frame. There are 2 larger mobs that guard the door to the first boss who apply 2 debuffs, which deal an increasing amount of damage the longer that the debuff is on the player. These are a magic dispel but can also be removed with any anti-slow abilities like Tiger's Lust, Freedom, Disengage, DH Backflip, and so on. This mechanic was very common in Pit of Saron, but was also seen in Seat this season. I appreciate this being dispellable in multiple ways as to not be overly punishing for the healer since more people can get rid of that themselves. The application damage on this is pretty significant, so I could see that being toned down a bit. To get down to the first boss, you're jumping off of this broken bridge into the water. Just be aware that it does not have equal depth, so there are some shallow areas that you can die to. I will probably always use lighter than air here to break my fall, but I do hope that they make the water deeper everywhere because I could see this causing a lot of deaths. The first boss's name is Ravi, and this is unfortunately a pretty boring boss in the current iteration. The boss does a big AoE stomp, followed by the application of 3 poison spits/circles. These will probably hurt a lot more on higher keys, but they are fairly spread out. And then he has an intermission phase by running to a nearby pile of bones. This mechanic requires your tank to ensure that he's positioned away from the bone piles that have meat on them. He also does a crazy tank buster, which was one-shotting a paladin, but was a complete non-issue for Brewmaster. So this fight in the first trash area, I feel like the tank is doing the key, and I'm kind of just running with them. It feels like the responsibility is not split evenly at all for the first area. I do think this boss needs maybe one more mechanic that doesn't involve the tank. I could see this becoming a bigger issue on a higher key where the shield takes longer to break, you're taking more rot damage for a longer duration, and that could add some challenge. But overall, I don't think that this is a super challenging boss, which is okay for a first boss. I just wish that there was a little more involvement from the rest of the group. The second area trash is where the dungeon starts to involve everybody else and gets a lot more fun. The packs after the first boss have a pulsing AoE to heal through, as well as kicks that will apply a poison if they go off. There are also all of these green eggs around the edge of the room that can be stepped on to break out more hatchlings. I think it's 5 snakes per egg, and this is actually great for Mistweaver since we can use these to funnel healing during the rattle, and they also give count. There are also puddles of blood on the ground, which I believe are from the tank being bitten by the bloodletters. This is mainly a tank mechanic, but it's kind of like Old Sanguine, just less annoying. This boss is a little weird, and I'm concerned over how it will scale into higher keys. He does apply an AoE debuff that needs to be healed, which will probably be pretty difficult in higher keys, but I'm more concerned about his intermission. After the AoE damage finishes, he's going to cast something, and that will actually give you an extra action button that you need to use and then reach a certain distance from the boss. This is pretty easy for Monk because you can either transcend or roll out, and then this will bring you into the intermission. 5 snakes will spawn and fixate on players. These melee and apply a hard-hitting poison debuff, but the snakes can be CC'd. So I am curious how this will scale into higher keys because even on a 15 or a 16 these hurt pretty bad, and melee specifically will have issues with the poison applications while trying to kill them. This is just a rinse and repeat fight of AoE, extra action button, intermission. There's some tank stuff that's happening, but that's none of my business. One thing I really dislike about this intermission phase is if one of the snakes dies before the others, it goes back underground, and the burrowed snake is a projectile that actually does a lot of damage. I wish that they were a bit easier to see. And then if you kill the adds too quickly, you kind of just sit there and AFK and wait for the boss to reemerge. The boss should come back when all of the snakes die, otherwise be timer based. Next we head into a room that has a mini boss. There are 4 totems around the room that all have trash protecting them that you have to kill. In this pack there are these Blade of Altar mobs, and I think that these are pretty problematic. They're one of those mobs that pick a target and jump to them and deal damage, and in this case they leave a dot. But it doesn't look like there is any protection against multiple blades targeting the same person, and there's no way of knowing who they're going to pick until they've already picked. Later in this run, our Warlock got 3, so you can just get unlucky, which is not a design that I enjoy. Being lucky or unlucky shouldn't determine someone living or dying or timing the key. So these will be fine, I think, if they can get them to not prefer the same target, but that hasn't been super successful in the past. Next up is a mini-boss that requires 4 totems to be broken in order to spawn it. Now, I am a certified mini-boss hater, but I kinda like this one. It's fun to heal and it fits Mistweaver's profile well since there is a constant stream of funnel after the first set of spreads. These circles drop little snakes that fixate players, but this is sweet, sweet healing funnel. They do melee, and they deal a decent amount of damage, but you can honestly just heal with Way the Crane through it. In higher keys, you may have to be coordinating CCs or slows, but I think Mistweaver should be able to tank them and just continue to spin. They do persist after mini-boss death, so you can bring the extra leftover snakes upstairs for additional funnel. Upstairs there are more of these Blade of the Altar mobs. This is where we get multiple applications on the same person, and I'm honestly really surprised that he lived. This is only a 16 and I thought that he was a goner, so Hopefully that this is something that they look at, otherwise we're going to be doing a lot of splitting up packs. These living venom mobs are interesting. They do on-death damage, but they can also be CC'd, so you can break up some of that burst damage, which is cool, and I do like that agency. I don't know if they will blow up if they're CC'd when they die. That would be worth testing next time I'm in here. But I do like being able to pick and choose how many things are going to be blowing up at once, especially if you're pulling it with the Blade of the Altars. The Harrower and the Serpents are from the first area, so those are familiar. I could see a bad overlap happening with the Paralyzing Shots, which is the Dispel, and the Jump from the Blade of the Altars, so this will be a good pack to send defensives on for sure. And the final trash pack is some of those Heal Absorb guys with Blade of the Altars and a Line Dude. This is the only part where the Heal Absorb actually does need heal off quickly due to the blades in the pack, because those will kill you through that absorb. We lusted this because the last boss is not very hard, but I do think that this would be a very good lust pull. And finally, we have Zul'Jan. This guy requires you to soak 4 beams and prevent them from hitting him. This does do damage for the duration of the soak and will give you a debuff with stacks. The debuff is cleared by standing in Bone Slicer, which will then cause you to drop puddles of blood while the dot ticks. Ideally, these should be dropped by the edges of the room so that the soaking area for the next one is clear. There are 2 casts of Bone Slicer per phase, so if you miss the first one, you can stand in the next, or on hierarchies we may split it between 2 groups to help with the damage intake. You can also drop soaks individually by getting hit by one of these bouncing axes, and the axes come out individually based on where the boss is facing when he casts Axe Grinder. Overall, I think that this boss is simple but effective, and I am excited to see how it does in higher keys. The dungeon as a whole, I mostly just dislike the first area and how reliant it is on your tank. It doesn't feel very fair to the role that already has the most pressure on them. But after the first boss, I like the dungeon quite a bit, and I think Mistweaver could do very well in here due to the access to funnel, CCs we bring, as well as the slows.